Imagine being born into privilege, only to have your rightful inheritance stolen from you before you even have a chance to claim it. This was the extraordinary fate of Myra Clark Gaines, a young woman in early 19th century New Orleans, whose life became defined by a relentless pursuit of justice. Born around 1804 to Daniel Clark, one of the wealthiest and most influential men in Louisiana, and his partner Zuline Cariri, Myra entered a world of immense opportunity, yet also hidden danger. When her father died in 1813, he left behind a fortune that included vast tracts of New Orleans real estate, plantations, investments, and countless assets worth millions in today's terms. But instead of passing to Myra, the estate was controlled by her grandfather and executors, who recognized an earlier will from 1811, which conveniently excluded her entirely. From that moment on, Myra's life became a battlefield, as she discovered hints of a later, secret will naming her as the legitimate heir, and realized that powerful men were profiting from her father's wealth at her expense. What followed was no ordinary lawsuit. It was a decades-long struggle against entrenched societal norms, gender discrimination, and legal corruption, one that would eventually make Myra Clark Gaines the central figure in the longest civil litigation in American history. Her story is not just about money, it is a tale of courage, perseverance, and defiance in a world where women had almost no legal voice, and it begins with a young woman's unwavering refusal to let injustice stand. The lost heiress. Imagine being born into wealth, only to have it stolen before you even realize it exists. This was the fate of Myra Clark Gaines, born around 1804 in New Orleans, the daughter of Daniel Clark, one of the city's wealthiest men, and Zuline Cariri, a French Creole woman. Daniel Clark had amassed a fortune that included prime New Orleans real estate, plantations, investments, and other assets that would make him a millionaire in today's terms. Yet when he died in 1813, a legal loophole and an outdated will left Myra with nothing. The courts recognized a will from 1811, naming Clark's mother and other executors as the heirs, conveniently excluding the young girl. As Myra grew up, she discovered letters and hints suggesting that her father had in fact made a later will, naming her as his legitimate heir. Her inheritance, however, had already been parceled out, sold, or controlled by powerful figures in the city who claimed ownership in good faith. This revelation sparked a fire in Myra that would define her entire life. At a time when women had almost no legal standing and societal expectations demanded quiet obedience, Myra refused to accept her fate. She became determined to reclaim what was rightfully hers. Her story was not merely about money. It became a battle against corruption, injustice, and gender inequality. This was the beginning of a legal saga that would stretch over half a century, making Myra Clark Gaines a symbol of courage and persistence in American legal history. The lawsuit begins the battle for justice. In the 1830s, Myra Clark Gaines officially took her first steps into the courtroom, filing suit to contest the 1811 will and assert her claim to the later 1813 document. Because women had limited legal rights at the time, she filed under her husband's name, a necessity in an era that rarely allowed women to represent themselves. The lawsuit challenged not only the legitimacy of the will but also the authority of powerful executors who had already sold or managed large portions of Clark's estate. The stakes were enormous, as she was contesting millions of dollars worth of property, much of it in prime New Orleans real estate, that had appreciated significantly since her father's death. From the outset, Myra faced enormous obstacles. The executors and their allies argued that she was illegitimate and therefore had no legal claim to her father's estate. They also insisted that the 1811 will was valid and final, and that anyone who had purchased property from the executors had done so legally. The courts were crowded with influential figures who had a vested interest in keeping the estate out of her hands. Yet, Myra remained undeterred. She hired skilled lawyers, collected evidence, and pursued every legal avenue possible. This battle was more than a claim to money. It was a fight for recognition, legitimacy, and justice in a society that often silenced women's voices. Her persistence marked the start of a lifetime in courtrooms, a fight that would define her as one of the most determined plaintiffs in U.S. history. Chapter 3. Decades of courtroom battles. Over the next 50 years, Myra Clark Gaines waged one of the most extraordinary legal campaigns in American history. Her lawsuit moved through multiple layers of the legal system, from local courts in Louisiana to the United States Supreme Court, reaching it 17 times, an unmatched record in civil litigation. Each step presented new challenges. Some courts questioned her legitimacy as Clark's daughter, while others ruled in favor of buyers and executors who had purchased portions of the estate in good faith. Every decision required her to start over, gather new evidence, and confront entrenched legal power structures that sought to keep the fortune out of her hands. Myra's resilience in the face of these obstacles became legendary. She endured public scrutiny, attacks on her character, and endless delays, yet she never relented. The case became symbolic not only for the enormous fortune at stake, but also for her fight against a patriarchal legal system that marginalized women. Witnesses were called, documents scrutinized, and every sale or transfer of property contested. As decades passed, Myra's battle grew more complex. Property had changed hands multiple times, laws evolved, and the city of New Orleans itself transformed. Yet her determination never waned. She understood that giving up would mean surrendering both her inheritance and her father's legacy. Her unwavering pursuit of justice exemplifies perseverance in its purest form, a fight defined by courage, strategy, and an unshakable belief in the rightness of her claim. Chapter 4: Legacy and the Final Verdict. Despite her extraordinary efforts, Myra Clark Gaines did not live to see the final resolution of her case. She passed away in 1885, after spending more than 5 decades fighting tirelessly in courtrooms across Louisiana. Her life was consumed by legal papers, hearings, and endless appeals, and much of the estate had been diminished by legal fees. Yet her persistence set the stage for one final victory. In 1891, 6 years after her death, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of her claim, recognizing her inheritance rights and ordering the city of New Orleans to pay her estate nearly $924,000, an enormous sum at the time. Though legal costs had reduced the actual amount her heirs received, the ruling validated decades of struggle and affirmed her position as the rightful heir to Daniel Clark's fortune. Myra's story is far more than a tale of wealth. It is a remarkable narrative of courage, justice, and resilience. In a society that sought to silence women, she became a symbol of persistence against legal and societal oppression. Her legacy endures as a testament to the power of determination and the pursuit of justice, inspiring generations to fight for their rights, no matter how insurmountable the obstacles may appear. The saga of Myra Clark Gaines remains a defining chapter in American legal history, illustrating that even the longest and most challenging battle can leave an enduring mark on society and law.